Bro, you're the nicest UFC fighter in the world, dude.
Shout out Basement Talk, man.
I want to bite at least 2 of your ears off.
I make more than $1 million in a day sometimes. You better.
I watched a lot of the podcast stuff, and I've seen a lot of other clips, but I didn't see the actual which we were.
Have you watched the Joe Rogan episode or not?
Yeah, I watched
the whole
a little
thing.
Not the
I was
whole.
going to say that's long.
It's
3 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
The first 45 minutes wasn't great for me, but after that it picked up. And then Joe's like, "Oh, you haven't lost a single argument in the whole thing."
Yeah, I just watched an edited clip where every time you got the guy, it went,
It's like that one was funny, right?
That was the best.
Yeah, who made that?
I was dying.
The guy called Lifting Vegan Logic. A guy called Daniel Ishay. Yeah.
What did that guy think he was doing, testing you?
I don't know, but there was a previous episode that I
right?
tried to get on where he spent 3 hours debunking it.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, if I tried to always imagine if I hadn't have read all the stuff that I've read.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, yeah, this guy's pretty convincing. I would believe everything he said.
Okay.
Right.
Just because of the way he
if I didn't
framed
know
it
what I
and
was looking at.
everything,
Yeah. He's like, oh, in the film he said that cattle are fed B12, and he's like, there's no evidence of cattle. Being fed B12. And so I just listed adverts for B12 sold to cattle. And
I saw that.
Well, that was the best part about it was you picked apart every single piece.
I spent 15 hours a day for 7 days prepping for that. Yeah.
Crazy.
I just laid in bed and just sat and I made 150 slides,
It's on demon time.
wrote them all out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to smash this guy.
Yeah, that was
Because
crazy.
he spent 7 hours, right? It's I spent 7 hours reading, review. I was like, dude, I spent 7 years making that film.
Yeah.
You know? You're not going to take it apart in 7 hours. So.
Well, where did this guy come from?
He'd been on, the funny thing is, he always talks about having master's training in nutrition. What he doesn't say is he's an acupuncturist. And he goes, I went to Berkeley, but it's not Berkeley
not
university.
UC Berkeley.
No, exactly. I did Berkeley and I got a master's level training. Yeah. Okay, you went to the Berkeley College of Acupuncture. And you've got a master's degree in acupuncture, which has some classes on nutrition. So he'd been on Joe Rogan's podcast 3 times before.
Well, isn't that funny? I know he was on earlier in Joe's podcast.
Yeah, and Joe never had him on again after that.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that Joe would have a guy like that on?
I know, he considered him an expert. So so he brought on his best guy, and then I was like, dude, he doesn't know what he's fucking talking about. And he's like, oh, well, if you'd have gone against so-and-so. I was like, well, why did... You made out he was an expert. You've had him on 4 times.
Yeah,
I saw a comment too that someone was like, dude, he almost made him cry at the end.
People were like, he looks like a vegan. He was like this.
It was like a mental UFC fight.
I mean, that much. Yeah, I saw a clip of you too, something about the preparation. I mean, 3,000 or 1,000 hours.
1,000 while I was making the film, the first 6-9 months, and then 3,000 total. Yeah.
And you can kind of see that the way you kind of tackled that.
Welcome back to Basement Talk, guys. Today we have James Wilks in the house.
Let's go.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure. We were kind of rolling already, talking about the whole Joe Rogan thing, the Joe Rogan podcast. But what part of England are you from?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. Really appreciate you thinking of me.
pleasure.
So I was born, the easiest way to explain it is in the middle of the country, so near Nottingham, or as you guys say, Nottingham.
Nottingham.
Which is like Sherwood Forest, Robin Hood country.
Yeah.
So that's the easiest way to explain it, is right there in the middle of the country. Then the last 4 years, I was down at Bournemouth University, right on the south coast, before I came out to the US when I was 22 years old. Yeah.
Quickly, thank you for the gift, by the way. Shout out Fighter Fuel, right?
Yeah,
for
Fighter,
sure.
we just launched that a few months ago, so...
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
so
super
definitely going to give that a try.
I know I need it.
Yeah, this guy definitely needs it. But yeah, going back to the Joe Rogan experience, right? How was that experience being on there? And
I was nervous going in. Felt honestly a bit like getting ready for a fight, you know? Yeah. So you know how you prep that 6 weeks coming up to a fight and you're pretty nervous the whole time?
Yeah.
Stepping in the octagon. That's a little bit what it felt like. And people that watched it said, dude, I think that guy's on some drugs. My pupils were dilated and I was pumped up. But it was just because I was really pumped. You know, I was the guy had talked a lot of smack, Chris Kresser, who was trying to debunk my documentary, The Game Changers. And so I was pretty pissed going in. I settled down a little bit. But that first hour, I was going after the guy a little bit.
yeah.
So what are the differences between training for a fight and training for a verbal warfare on Joe Rogan? Are you watching film the same? Yeah. Do you have the same fire against the guy?
Yeah, I'm pretty all in, right? So same with fighting, just watching a bunch of tape, getting all of the slowing it down, seeing their skills, seeing how they respond to certain things. And then with this, Chris Kresser, who's an acupuncturist, had been on Joe Rogan's podcast before trying to debunk the Game Changers, my documentary, which is about nutrition and plant-based eating, sort of dispelling the myth that you need meat and animal products to be strong and healthy. And he was trying to debunk it. So I had the whole transcript written up by somebody, and then I reviewed it all, and then I started looking at all the, the peer-reviewed literature and seeing what points he was making. Often people will quote studies, but they haven't even read them. And it was clear he hadn't read some of the studies. So, I just looked at all the peer-reviewed literature, and it was a lot of work, but, obviously not the same physical. Yeah. You still get some of that fight or flight, that you get.
Little adrenaline, right?
Yeah, a little adrenaline, a little bit, just like a fight, yeah.
How did you get in touch with Joe initially? Did he call you?
No, Joe followed me on Instagram.
Okay.
He was already following me on Instagram. So I hit him up. I'm like, hey, I heard there's going to be a debate. Or there's going to be someone talking smack on the film. He'd posted, I think, saying Chris Kresser is going to do a debunk of the Game Changer. I said, wouldn't it be fair to have me on? And he said, well, Joe said, you've already had your chance to show your thesis with the Game Changers documentary. So this guy's going to counter it. And I said, okay, well, once that's gone on, how about a debate? So I wasn't able to get on the first one. And actually, I didn't ask for myself to go on. I said, can we put our chief science advisor, who's got a double master's degree in exercise physiology and nutrition, right? Consults for all these high-profile athletes, does a bunch of research in the scientific literature on nutrition. Joe was like, no, I want... and so he saw my message, didn't respond for 24 hours. So my guess is he was going back to Chris Kresser and say, hey, what do you think about having James's chief nutrition advisor, which obviously knows a lot more than I do about nutrition, right? Our chief nutrition guy. But Joe didn't want him on, wanted me on. So I went and did it. So yeah.
What's funny is before I even actually knew who you were, I was sitting in the sauna at Lifetime, which you go there as well. And I didn't really know who you were. And I think you just walked out. And I was still sitting there, and someone started talking a little bit about you behind your back, like,
oh, really?
Oh, that's the guy who made the film about this. I don't know how I feel about it, or just kind of talking shit.
Yeah.
And have you gone that a lot from just putting that message out there?
People talk shit to my face, right?
They don't.
And
they didn't dare.
Yeah, they don't want to say it to my face.
I know, I
right?
wouldn't.
It's always after the song.
When it comes to it made the documentary, right? And when it turns out, if you look at the behavioral psychology literature, that meat eating is really tied to people's identity. And what we found out, especially was it a guy?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So with young men especially, a lot of young men are insecure about their masculinity, right? And meat eating is tied to that identity. And so it's very hard to convince people against their beliefs when their behavior is tied to their identity. So I'm a real man, so I hunt and I
That's a good point.
That's
a really good point.
So anytime you challenge their beliefs, if it's not tied to their identity, you can provide information, unbiased information, and they'll change their mind. But the behavioral psychology literature shows if it's it's a behavior tied to their identity, all the information you present, not only doesn't it help, they actually dig their heels in and believe more in their original position, and they're less likely to accept scientific information. So that's a really interesting part of the behavioral psychology.
No one's ever said anything to your face, though?
No, dude, how say on social media?
I would.
If someone, if I saw you and just looking at your ears, I would fucking run. I'd run the opposite way,
Yeah. I mean, some people have brought stuff. If I'm giving a talk on stage, I'll say something in the audience occasionally, but very infrequently. Or they're more polite if it's to my face, right? Whereas even right now, just before I left, someone's trying to talk smack on. He said, "Oh, James was great when he was meeting me, and now he's not fighting anymore." I'm like, well, that's got nothing to do with my diet. I actually, I'd fractured my neck playing rugby when I was younger, and that got worse and worse. And so that's why I ended up retiring medically eventually. But,
what was that like for you being told that you weren't able to fight anymore?
Yeah, I still had a choice, but the doctors were saying significantly high risk of paralysis, and I was weighing it up. I'm like, yeah.
That's what I had seen.
It's not really worth it,
Yeah.
you know? So I still train, but, I'll train for a couple of weeks, crank my neck, sit out for
kind of take off
weeks,
for a little
go
bit.
back again.
Well, obviously it led you to a really cool career path after the fact.
Yeah,
though,
it was like
super
won The Ultimate Fighter, then made the most viewed documentary of all time.
Crazy.
Then now we're making Game Changers 2 with LeBron James. So
Wow.
No way.
That's amazing.
That's crazy. I know on the original Game Changers, all the executive producers, you have a long list of just
Yeah, we
Arnold
had 6 big names.
Schwarzenegger.
We had James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jackie Chan, and then 3 big athletes. We had Chris Paul, a 10-time NBA All-Star.
Lewis Hamilton.
the 7-time Formula 1 champion, and Novak Djokovic, the #1 male tennis player.
So LeBron's plant-based?
So I don't know his exact diet. What I do know is that his chef and his trainer were vegan, and they had a copy of the Game Changers even before it came out. Oh, wow. Right. So, and he's also friends with CP3, Chris Paul, who's completely plant-based. And so I don't know LeBron's exact diet, but I think he's pretty pro-plants. Yeah.
And what's it like for you being around high-level athletes like that and having them acknowledge like your work and your thesis and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, no, it's rewarding. But what's really interesting, when we went around and filmed all the athletes, they all wanted to learn some fighting moves.
That's really cool.
Doesn't matter what sport they were in. It's like, oh, dude, I want to learn some self-defense.
Who was the best fighter out of all of them?
Oh, I rolled with this. He's not the most famous, but Patrick Baboumian, who's in the film. He carries the most weight ever carried by a human being. Over
He was the
10
guy
meters.
with the beard.
Yeah, the big German
Yeah.
dude. It's like 5'7".
Yeah,
but
I
he's
saw that. He flipped the car.
Yeah.
He's the one
Yeah.
talking about the
crazy
ox.
strong. So I rolled with him, jiu-jitsu, and he actually, see this rib right here?
Yeah.
Oh.
He popped my ribs separated off my.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he's strong. He's like, his back is like this wide, literally.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
But
And when was the last time you ate meat?
it's been like, I started the documentary in 2011, so 12 years. Yeah, and I just tried it. I thought I'll try it, see how I do. Started feeling better, my endurance improved. And I wasn't committed to it. I gave it up slow, like over 6 or 7 weeks. I was like, gave up meat, then fish, dairy, right, and then finally eggs. And it's been like a little over 12 years now since I started the documentary. It took a long time.
Wow.
As you know, when you're just getting started and this stuff, like I went onto YouTube, learned how to do the lighting, bought a used camera from Craigslist. That's how that whole documentary started.
Wow.
Do you feel pressure now too, like you have to do it, or do you actually like really enjoy? I mean, obviously
I
you
don't
really
feel-
get the
yeah,
benefits.
Yeah, I
but
don't even. Yeah.
do you ever get tempted though to like, oh, that piece of steak looks good?
Not at
Or
all.
do you think you
I don't
get-
even think of it as food anymore.
Do you think you'd get sick if you were to eat it?
I think if I ate dairy, potentially, because so there's lactose in dairy, right? Typically, unless it's been pulled out, and we have an enzyme called lactase, which breaks down lactose. Now, typically, you wouldn't have that past weaning off of your mother's breast milk, so you'll lose the lactase enzyme if you're not drinking milk. So I've probably become lactose intolerant.
Got it.
At a guess.
That makes sense, yeah.
But a lot of people, right, like of different races, so a lot of Hispanic people, Asian people, like hybrid, like I think it's 90% of Asians are lactose intolerant.
Really?
So a lot of people can't drink milk for that reason anyway.
Are
Yeah,
you-
we only really started drinking milk about 10,000 years ago. So.
Are you married? Do you have kids?
Separated, had
Okay.
a couple of kids, but yeah.
Awesome. How many kids do you have?
So I got 2. My son's 13 and my daughter's 9. They're both doing jiu-jitsu now. So.
Oh,
wow,
that's cool.
How cool is that for you being able to coach them and stuff?
Yeah, it's fun. I train them a little bit, but I also just go and, I'm always shouting I'm the annoying parent from the sideline. Like last night, I'm like, underhook, spin your leg over.
Yelling
like,
over the coach and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Bridge,
awesome.
hip escape.
Are they plant-based as well?
Yeah. So my daughter's like, like if it's a kid's birthday party and there's birthday cake or something, or, something like that. Then
Be like,
I'm not
whatever.
gonna- I don't. They do, and they're getting older, so they're going to choose what they want to eat. But other than that, I feel like the kids might be eating a little bit of candy at Halloween.
Yeah, sneaking
But
it.
other than that, like my daughter's never had any animal products, and my son since he was like 1 or never had anything.
If you like were to go like on a date with a girl and she ordered like a steak or something, would you get all like nutrition
no,
with
I think
her?
people
or-
should. Oh, what if they ask? Right, if
Then
they
you
ask
would,
questions,
like-
then I'm going to lay down some knowledge. But,
Make 'em not
I
wanna
think people
finish
should
the
eat.
steak.
I think people should eat what they want to eat. Right.
Okay.
So we have a non-profit, the Game Changers Institute, which is a research, education, advocacy platform promoting plant-forward eating, is what we're calling it.
Okay.
So not vegan or vegetarian, and then we say it's like all or something, not all or nothing. So we're just trying to encourage a shift towards eating more whole plant foods. I'm not trying to tell you what you should be eating, but
Yeah.
I think the science is pretty clear that plant predominant or plant exclusive diets are better for health, better for the planet, and obviously better for animals as well. Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie, I've never tried a pure plant-based diet, but I watched a clip of Jordan Peterson on Joe Rogan where he was talking about carnivore and all the benefits of that, and that really made me interested. And I tried it twice in my life, the carnivore diet. The first time, man, my skin cleared. I've never felt better in my life, which I was like, whoa. I don't know where, maybe it's a placebo effect. I don't know.
Like,
but
Yeah, it's basically, I mean, anytime it's like an exclusion diet, right? So if you just cut out everything and ate sweet potatoes, you'd probably start feeling better because there might be certain things that you're eating. It doesn't mean that it's the steak that's beneficial. It's probably something in your diet that wasn't great. So anytime you do an exclusion diet, you're eating only one thing, then a lot of times you've cut out, like you might be allergic to nightshade vegetables like tomatoes or, you know what I mean? Maybe you're eating some sugar, like a bunch of sugar, you know what I mean? Or soda or white flour, you know what I mean? So it could be things that are ordinarily healthy for most people, or it could be things that just aren't that healthy anyway, like white sugar, white flour, right? So anytime you cut that out, in the short term, you can get benefit. The other thing is, if you've got like high blood markers of like cholesterol, or especially LDL cholesterol or ApoB, or your blood sugar's high or whatever, anytime you lose body fat, those markers tend to improve. And basically, if you eat sort of a century-specific diet or a state-specific diet where you're eating only one food, you get a bit bored of it, so you don't overeat calories, right? So that's why people lose weight on these types of diets. It doesn't have to be steak, right? It could be sweet potatoes or whatever, right? It could be anything. But you're probably going to lose weight on that stuff because you don't want to keep eating the same thing over and over.
It was disgusting. And I'm not going to lie, it only lasted probably a maximum of 8 days before, excuse me, viewers, before I like got constipated. Like it was disgusting. But I felt amazing, and you are probably right about that. Like it's just because of the exclusion. That's what I was thinking.
It's taking out a negative.
So wait, you only ate meat?
Yes.
Like
that's been pretty like that's a growing like and pretty concerning sort of thing where people are saying like you know, like people are saying saturated fat doesn't matter, that you don't need fiber, and I think that's really off base based on the preponderance of evidence in the scientific literature.
I was gonna ask too, what do you think about the Liver King and like?
I mean, obviously he was on steroids. What was really interesting when his emails were exposed, was because they all talk about doing like high protein, high fat, no carb or low carb or keto, right? But it was really interesting because he was eating. He laid out his diet to that trainer that was selling him the steroids. And so obviously it wasn't shocking about the steroids, but he was on maltodextrin powder, which is pure carbs. And then he was eating potatoes. So I'm like, okay, so you are eating that stuff, you know?
And I was going to ask too, does that like help your message a little bit too when that type of stuff like gets shown to the public that it's like fraud?
I didn't even post about it or whatever. It's obvious he's on steroids, right? To anyone that would know anything about that stuff, which is when Paul Saladino, right, the carnivore MD, they used to call himself carnivore MD. I'm like, I can't wait till he starts eating some fruit, and then certainly he adds fruit in now and honey, and he called himself Carnivore MD 2.0. I'm like, this is cool. Let's wait for Carnivore MD 3.0. You're going to change your name again soon. And sure enough, he didn't call himself 3.0, but he changed it again. But he's business partners with the Liver King, right?
Oh, okay.
And he's like, oh, I didn't know that he was on steroids. I'm like, come on.
Yes. Yeah.
How can you tell someone is? Because obviously Kobe's on steroids. I don't know if you could tell, but
I mean, obviously, like, a lot of times it's the skin or like the shoulders are so like extraordinarily big, it seems like, on those bodybuilders.
Look.
Yeah. I mean, it's not always obvious, right? But then some people that are definitely on it are definitely on it. And he was taking massive stacks.
His skin's all red and like, you can tell.
It doesn't look natural, right? Like, you just can't get like that. Steroids,
100%.
What was it like though, just winning, like, going to fighting now? Obviously I want to go back into the whole diet thing, but what was that feeling like winning the Ultimate Fighter?
Yeah, what's that process like too?
Yeah, it was crazy. It's funny, how a lot of people, if they're getting beaten down and they win, like I knew I was going to win the whole time, but like when I was in the fight, I got up kicked. I was over the top of
kind of like a Tony Ferguson.
Like but I got up kicked and I was semi-conscious. I was like, I don't know where I am. I sat back for a heel hook. Then he got on top and he was pounding me, and I was thinking, well, I made it to the final. That was pretty cool. But I kept like pushing through, and then like. Pulled
what it was it was the United States versus the UK Ultimate Fighter, and can you explain that a little bit?
I think it was the first time that the Ultimate Fighter did country versus country.
Okay.
Now the Americans complain when I won because I'd been living here for like eight or 9 years.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of my training was here, to be fair. But it was funny because when I first came here, there was only one Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in the whole of the UK: England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. I only one black belt. It was Hodger Gracie's dad. And I'd go back after living here for a year or two and like smash people in jiu-jitsu, right? Because there just was no jiu-jitsu in England really. But by the time it came to the Ultimate Fighter in 2009, all the guys on my team were actually really pretty good. And Michael Bisping was a lot better than I thought.
Yeah, I was going to ask what it was
you
like.
You watch him on TV. It's interesting. You watch people on TV and you go, yeah, that guy's not very skilled. And you go on the mat and they're like, oh, they're a lot better than they look. Or sometimes it's the opposite. Some people look great in UFC and you roll with them and you smash them and they're like, I don't understand. Some people are just better gym
When you say
fighters.
better though, is it
deceiving.
like the strength or?
No, it's like the technique, or like I didn't think Bisping was that skilled because he looks kind of scrappy.
He's a little more
But his
well-rounded.
wrestling and his jiu-jitsu and his kickboxing, yeah, it was more skilled than I anticipated.
So winner of UK played the winner of the United States. So you made it to
No,
the
so
final.
during the show, so first of all, I had to fly to England.
Okay.
And then you fought other British people to get a spot on the British team. So I think there was 16 people.
Okay.
And then 8 people end up representing England. UK.
Yeah.
All of the United Kingdom. So I flew to England. I had like 2 days. I was jet lagged. I won that first fight in 30 seconds with a heel hook. And that was the guy, Shea Mills, that was, they thought he was going to win the whole show. So fortunately, I got him out of the way quickly in the first fight, and then flew back, to live in Vegas. And then you fight Americans, right? And it just so happens that it was America versus UK in the final. That was a 170.
Okay.
But at 155, it was UK versus UK.
Wow.
Yeah, but
So your division was mainly 155? Or?
no, I was 170.
Okay.
So there's
Yeah,
2 weight
welterweight.
classes on the show.
Yeah.
All the 170s fighting each other, and then 155. Keep in mind, I don't walk around at 170, right?
Yeah.
So I was walking around in shape about 187, and
Wow.
cut the day before.
How's that?
Yeah, what's the cut like, especially on the Ultimate Fighter? I mean,
Yeah,
you're on
it can
such
be
a
pretty
short
brutal.
time length.
Yeah,
and
'cause you got to
stuff.
fight again 2 weeks later
Yeah.
or a week later. Yeah. That weight cut can be pretty brutal. And honestly, in hindsight, I probably should have fought a little bit heavier and not had to cut as much weight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's pretty. The science shows if you cut more than 2% of your body weight in water, your performance is decreased by up to 6 weeks. And I had one fight after I won the Ultimate Fighter. I fought Matt Brown, who's like just really tough dude. And I got him hold him at the beginning. I'm like, oh, I didn't feel very strong. I'm gonna smash this guy. He elbowed me in the eyeball in the first 30 seconds, blew out my orbital floor. Still got damage. I still got nerve damage on this side of my face, but couldn't see out that eye. But he just wore me down. And I remember I'd gone into that weigh-in I thought I was 184. And when it's not a championship fight, you got a 1 pound allowance. So I had to get to 171. But I turned out I was 187 and I cut to 169 by accident. So I cut 18 pounds the day before. Nearly all of that was in like a 3 or 4 hour sauna session.
Jeez.
And I just had back then you were allowed to get IVs after the weigh-in. You're not allowed to do that anymore, but electrolytes. And my doctor fell through, and I had a nurse back up, and that fell through, and I didn't get by the end of the first round, like any one of you guys probably could have beat me because I just had nothing left from the weight loss. Yeah.
We asked another person if he could take 5 Kylers running at him, which is obviously me.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, easy. You'll get knocked out."
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
think prime you could take like 10 of me running at you?
10 would be tough, I think. I don't know what
How
your
many-
fighting skills are like. I don't know.
I have zero experience, which I want to get into it.
Well, I walked up. There was 10 guys like in the street once, like trying to pick a fight with me, and I thought these guys are gonna beat the shit out of me. There's 10 of them, and I don't know who's got a knife. And I said, "Look, guys, you guys are gonna kick the shit out of me, but I'm gonna bite at least 2 of your ears off." And then you look at them all, and they're thinking, "Shit, what if that one of those is me?"
Yeah.
Right?
Start doing the math.
Yeah. And you're like, there's a 1 in 5 chance that's gonna be me. Right? And so I was like, I'm gonna bite at least 2 of your ears off.
2 or 3.
Not a whole
And they
lot of
look at me
Evander
like,
Holyfields out there.
That's probably not worth it.
Were they big dudes?
It was like a mixture of like different. It was when I was like 18 or something.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, what made you walk up to them and just say,
No,
that?
they were picking on me.
They were
I
trying to pick
didn't-
a fight with
yeah.
you.
So what made you come to the United States in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I finished my degree when I was 22 years old in England. And my plan was to come here for 6 months. There's a guy called Paul Vunak who developed the Navy SEAL Unarmed Combat Program. And he was out in Virginia Beach training them. But by the time I came out, he was living here in Orange County. So he's of the lineage of Bruce Lee, so the Jeet Kune Do concepts. So Bruce Lee's main training partner was a guy called Dan Inosanto, who's still teaching in LA today. But Paul was like his protege back in the 90s. And so Paul had developed what's called the Rapid Assault Tactics, which is this Navy SEAL Unarmed Combat Program in the late 90s. And he was just really skilled fighter for self-defense and street fighting. So came out to train with Paul basically. And I was like doing 5-6 hours a day with him. From learning like headbutts, eye gouging, knife defense, jiu-jitsu, right? It wasn't like the MMA stuff. The MMA sort of sports stuff was more for fun, but my main focus was like teaching and training and like self-defense.
And you're now training. I saw like Navy SEALs and, was it?
Yeah, I have over the years, not so much recently. I used to train the Marines on base 3 times a week. I used to go down to Coronado a little bit, help develop the U.S. Marshals Arrest and Control Program.
Any famous personality that you trained while working with the SEALs, or like a Goggins or something?
No, I've never met Goggins. No one of note really. There's some people that did some pretty big stuff, but I couldn't really talk about what that was.
How do those guys like fight and roll and around? They're pretty skillful, right?
There's a mixture of like skills. Honestly, like when I went to the Marines originally, I was thinking, these guys are going to be real tough, and they were tough, right? I think tougher than your average person, but they weren't necessarily that skilled in fighting.
Like technical, probably.
Yeah, because they don't have a lot of it's going to be shooting, right? Obviously. And like the Marine Corps martial arts program, that initial training is like only 3 weeks long, and then you're doing touch-ups, but you're not, unless you're in it as a Marine Corps martial arts instructor trainer, which is the guys that I was training. But it's a mixture. Some of them have got some skill, and then some of them are cross-training in jiu-jitsu and boxing and that type of stuff.
How many people were in that class?
Well, there's 2 things that I would do. So, when I was going 3 days a week, they actually had a fight team down at, it was a camp. It was actually your full-time job as a Marine. You could elect to be on the fight team.
That's pretty cool.
So I was training those guys, but that was more like MMA, what's called pancration. So they would fight against the other forces.
Okay.
They just wouldn't do face shots.
Okay.
Right? But they do everything else just so they wouldn't get injured all the time. Right? So I'd train those. That would be a group of 40 guys.
Wow.
And then I used to go once a month to train the people that were in the last day of their Marine Corps martial arts training. That'd be 40 or 50 guys. These were all instructors. And then the instructor trainers was just like a few guys that I would train as well.
Has there ever been like a time where you got to split those guys up? Because I know it gets pretty tough in there in the Marines and the Navy SEAls and stuff.
There's been a few guys that have gone at it pretty hard with the gloves on, but never a time. No, not that I can think of. Never a time. They were pretty respectful. Yeah.
That's good. That's cool.
Do you think? Okay, I'm 21. Do you think it's even possible for me to get into the UFC if I start training right now?
Did you wrestle in high school?
No, I wrestled him.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally possible, right? There's some guys that have got really good after only a few years of training, right?
I tell this guy, because how much do you weigh, Zach?
I'm like 140, 145.
He's got like a Sugar Sean build, so I'm like, dude, he's taller than me. He's what did you say again?
I'm like 145, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
and we've been thinking about getting into it.
It's definitely possible just because you're 21. That doesn't mean it. I just don't know what, like a lot of guys I used to own a gym here in Orange County. Called Lightning MMA, and guys would come in and say, I want to fight pro. I'm like, okay, bro. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like,
you realize what it takes. Yeah,
you get punched in the face. I'm like, that's what that's like. It takes a lot of dedication and perseverance. And
yeah, what are some of the things that you get out of a sport like that, just like mentally? Because I know I have a lot of friends that do jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, Muay Thai and stuff, and it's like mentally just therapy for them. I
think it's really therapy. I think anytime that you can do something where you can't think about anything else, where you've got to focus, right? And like jiu-jitsu, for example, is like a physical game of chess. So I'm thinking about, okay, you can do this, this, and this, and my counter to this and this. Eventually it becomes sort of subconscious, but early on, you're really thinking about this and what's going to happen. Yeah. And so you can't think about anything else, right? So I think any sort of exercise, and if you're doing physical exercise at the same time, there's all sorts of endorphins that are released as well. So I think that can be really good, for your mental health, right? Reducing anxiety and stress, depression. So I know a lot of guys do it. But same like people that go to the gym, I think a lot of people are there, not just for the physical benefits, but I feel better if I work out in the morning. So I try and get workouts in.
Yeah.
Mix it up, like running the steps or hitting the heavy bag or lifting weights or doing jiu-jitsu, right? Just mixing it up. But I think there's a lot of, I can't imagine even walking around, like, I don't know what confidence I would have walking around not knowing the skill, the things that I know.
Probably my shitty confidence. No,
you'd be looking like me and Kyler.
I do want to feel more confident. Like I think I feel more confident walking around knowing that, obviously you could just shoot me or whatever, right, from a distance, and I wouldn't be able to do anything. But
that you have the skills to protect yourself if you need to.
Decent set of
you can fuck up 90% of people because no one does it, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to learn?
That's not what I'm trying to do. But
what do I want to learn?
What do you want to learn how to do?
Muay Thai. Because I played soccer my whole life. He did too. He was professional at one point.
Oh, right.
I mean, I think I can.
I played in Europe for 4 years. So I spent time in the UK. I was in Scotland.
We were just there, actually.
We were just in London, actually, last month for a 2-week vacation. But yeah, I spent time in Scotland for a year and then Spain for 2.5, 3 years.
Ever Nottingham?
Nottingham Forest. They're
Really?
doing well.
Yeah.
I've never played against them, but I know they're doing well right now in the league.
Yeah. And Leicester City was doing well a while back, right? A few years ago.
Yeah,
Now not.
they won the league.
Do you have a
actually.
team?
No, I never, honestly, like I've never really followed any sport other than probably UFC. And even then, I'm not like a big, in fact, I watch it now when like friends are fighting or if it's a big fight. But I've enjoyed playing, like I played soccer in school, rugby, right? I did track and field. I like playing ping pong a lot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think that's really good for your reflexes for fighting.
What's the new game? Is it pickleball?
Pickleball, yeah.
Have
I've
you
played that a
played
couple of
that?
times, but yeah, I just haven't had time
The
to
other
get into it.
Lifetime has a bunch of courts for those, I think.
Oh, which one in
San Clemente?
San Clemente, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't been down to that.
But one thing that, I mean, Kobe, I feel bad kind of putting you on blast, but one thing he struggled with during his career was, you know, erectile dysfunction. Was it because he ate a lot of
That's
meat?
bullshit.
I saw you say
Well, there's
Dude,
actually,
what
have
the
you seen the
fuck
scene?
is that?
Have you seen the scene in the film?
I just saw the clip on like an interview of you talking about that. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, there's like,
Fuck, dude.
No, okay, I was kidding about Kobe.
I'd love to hear the scene.
He's good.
yeah, no,
come
so we
on.
took 3 college athletes and then one day they had meat burritos. And then
that's my
there's like an
favorite.
FDA approved device to test your erectile function.
Oh, okay.
So like every night when you're asleep, you actually have like 4 to 6 erections while you're sleeping. Yeah. It's like part of normal bodily function.
Okay.
And there's a device that tests the duration and like rigidity of those erections. yeah. And then the next night they had plant-based burritos and had the same device on. And you could tell the difference. It was like 3 times the duration of erections. It was like stiffer erections.
Dang.
And it's all based on blood.
Are there
blood
other
flow, right?
variables though that can?
Yeah,
mess that
no,
up?
but it's been tested. There's actually another study in the works right now to like on a larger group of people and crossover and that type of stuff. But there's another thing we do in the film where there's some Miami Dolphins players eating different burritos, and you can actually see the difference in the blood. It's called postprandial lipemia. Okay. So postprandial just means after eating. Lipemia is like fat in the blood. And but this has been researched like for 20, 30 years. When you eat like high saturated fat from animal products, the meal, you get endothelial dysfunction. So the lining of your arteries produces nitric oxide. Yeah. And that allows your arteries to vasodilate and allow more oxygen, more blood flow. So in terms of athletic performance, that's better. But the arteries that go to your penis are some of the smallest in the body. So
Right,
it's
Zach?
yeah. Maybe not in your body. But,
Bro, you're talking about
it
this.
impacts your blood flow, right? And so things show up there. That's why people that get erectile dysfunction often like end up getting heart disease because arterial disease anywhere is arterial disease everywhere, right? And so when you guys your age, you don't care about it at all, right?
Yeah.
And which is another thing about meat eating is the guys are like, wow, I'm not, I don't need to worry about it now. And people then in their 40s, 50s, 60s start worrying about it. But yeah, there's studies going on right now to look at the different, the impact of animal foods on erectile function.
Is there a study on lifespan?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, so there's different levels of studies, right? Different in the evidence hierarchies. There's like anecdotes, case studies, right? Then you've got observational studies, right? Like epidemiology, and that can't prove causation, right? And then you've got randomized controlled trials. What you can't do with a randomized controlled trial is I can't put you guys in what's called a metabolic ward for 50 years and see what happens, right? So you have to take you have to look at the epidemiology. Okay, so people on vegan diets tend to live like up to 10 years longer, right? But you don't know if that was causal or whatever. And then you can look at things like, okay, if I eat higher levels of saturated fat, which is commonly found in meat or eggs, then my LDL goes up and my ApoB. And if those are up, my risk of heart disease and death from heart disease is higher. So there's inference that you can basically pull from all these different studies. And I think it's pretty clear that eating a lot of animal products just isn't good for athletic performance, sexual performance, or long-term health.
How accurate are those tests that tell you what you're allergic to?
They're not very accurate.
Oh yeah, we did one of those.
Because
right?
we did one and there was all sorts of...
No, I mean, I'm not a dietitian, right, or a doctor, but my understanding talking to the experts on our team and then other people I've talked to is that they're not.
We gave him a
reliable.
strand of hair.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
it was like 3 strands of hair, right?
I forgot about that. Yeah,
my understanding is that those things aren't really accurate and not helpful.
I went one time, I went to a naturalist allergist, and what he did was I held both my arms out like this, and he would put like a little bit of peanut butter, like type of thing. He'd like rub it on my thing, and then he'd be like, okay, try and press against my arm.
Yeah, it's
like,
total bullshit.
To lift up. Dude, it was so weird.
Yeah, it's total bullshit. I mean, it feels like it feels like it's weird though. Like,
But
people used to do this
get it.
with these bracelets that you put on. That,
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
I used to have-
are you
even
talking
if
about
that
power balance?
Power balance.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
even if that guy believes it, he's
Yeah.
pressing harder on one than he is on the other.
Oh, really?
Right, it's not like a machine pressing with exactly 50 pounds of pressure
Yeah.
or whatever. So, like, hold your hand out, right? Yeah, like, don't let me push it down. So I'll go like, okay, don't let me push it. And then I'll go like, whatever the mojo is, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll go, okay, hold it. Oh, look, see?
Yeah,
But I
that's-
just push a bit
Yeah,
harder.
yeah,
and like,
yeah.
you weren't ready for it. Or
Yeah.
like, and you can work around that. You can double placebo it. So I could give him something that's maybe got peanut butter or hasn't. Put a cloth over your arm.
Yeah.
Then have him do it.
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
exactly
been
what he
tested.
did.
And it's like total BS.
Damn.
Hey guys, yes, I'm on a private jet, and none of this would be possible without our sponsor, Zill Media. If you need any social media or any content done, or even start a podcast like ours, they are the best in the business. Go to zillmedia.com and mention Basement Talk for a discount on their services. Now let's get back to the episode. Let's get off this fake jet. Go get back to the episode.
I don't know who I asked on the podcast this, but I remember asking something about chiropractors. And do you think that's a little bit of a placebo? Because I believe it is.
I think that my take is that a lot of the claims they make aren't warranted or justified. But I don't think that means that they necessarily don't have any benefit potentially. But I don't know that it's better than other modalities. Or I mean, I got my neck cranked about 6 times really hard by someone once, and I walked in. This is like 15 years ago, and I went to a chiropractor and he adjusted it once, and I was like, oh, and felt like I had an hour massage.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that like I don't think there's no benefit, but I think like the way that they believe diseases exist and that they can solve them by that, I don't think that's, I don't think
funky.
that's justified. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've definitely seen good cases, but then I see videos of just like these cracks that they're making outside of cracking the human.
Yeah, they like crack their whole body.
And a lot
the
of them
guy's
are
like,
creeps, dude, the way they make their content. I don't need to speak on it, but I don't know if you guys have seen, but it's a little weird. Maybe you guys have seen out there, but
Oh, that's funny.
I want to ask you though, like really in depth, what does your diet look like for like, because we talking about, obviously the plant-based stuff, don't eat meat, all this, but like what does your diet exactly look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to give an exact day, right? But I eat oatmeal most days, but it's like a cherry chocolate oatmeal. So I'll have like oats. I sometimes put some lupin in, which a lot of people haven't heard. It's like a highest protein bean. But it's like it's not. I don't put the bean in. It's like dried ground lupin.
Okay.
So and we've actually got some built into our whole ground lupin put into our protein powder as well. And then I'll put like peanut butter, cherries, make it with soy milk. We can talk about soy because a lot of people think there's like estrogen in it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's got like 35 grams of protein or whatever in the oatmeal.
You drink coffee?
Yeah, I just started drinking coffee only because this is the only plant protein that goes in coffee. So I get 45 grams of protein in my coffee and it just disappears using this fighter, the protein we just launched. But usually plant protein is like really chalky or gritty, right? Whereas whey protein, they've been working on that technology for like since the 50s. And so whey protein has just typically been way better for taste and texture until now. And so we've developed something that's like goes toe to toe with whey and beats it really. But yeah, so I have coffee, but I have protein in my coffee.
So you got your coffee, oatmeal.
Yeah, I do
and what
oatmeal. I do a smoothie a lot of days, like greens and berries and stuff like that. Instead of regular pasta, I have lentil pasta or chickpea pasta or something because that's higher in protein. I'll make a tofu stir fry or something.
What's like your favorite restaurant? You ever go out to eat?
I go out occasionally, like I don't have a favorite one, but there's not many great vegan restaurants in Orange County. There's Gracias Madre in Newport Beach,
A lot of
which is
Mexican
decent.
food.
But like most restaurants, you can find something plant based these days. I find it easy, honestly. There's not like 50 things to choose from.
You never
there's a few
like
things and like
you never crave like a carne asada taco? Never.
you can make tacos like with different plant based stuff that taste similar. Yeah.
What about the soy though?
Oh yeah, so soy. Yeah, there's a lot of myths around soy.
I hear a lot of the, like you were talking about, the masculine community of people online talking shit on the
Like
whole
soy boys
soy
and all
Yeah,
that
there's
type of
even a
stuff.
term,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Zach's a soy boy and shit.
I've definitely seen Kyler get called the soy boy once
Yeah,
or
I mean,
twice.
it's based on this sort of, it's based on a couple of things, but people are worried about the estrogens in soy. But the reality is that all the mammalian estrogen, all the stuff that you're eating, that estrogen is identical in the meat you're eating, especially in the milk you're eating. It's elevated. But that estrogen is identical to your human estrogen. So if you're worried about estrogen, you shouldn't eat meat, milk, or eggs, first of all. But then phytoestrogens actually have been shown to be beneficial. They do go into the estrogen receptors. There's alpha and beta receptors in the body, but they go into some of those, and then they actually normalize your hormone levels a little bit. But there's no evidence, no good evidence. There's been 2 case studies of gynecomastia, right? You know, like when you get like man boobs.
Oh.
And then whether it was tied to the soy or not, the one guy was doing like a few gallons of soy milk a day. And so it can have an estrogenic effect. But it comes actually from, there's a certain phytoestrogen called genistein, which is also found in clover. And there was some sheep that were eating the clover, and that also had genistein, and they had like fertility problems. But you'd have to eat 1,000 soy burgers a day to get as much genistein from soy as you were getting from the clover. So there was like some animal stuff in like crazy ranges compared to what humans would be eating. And then a couple of case studies. But if you look at the higher, on the evidence hierarchy, the more convincing studies, no problems at all with soy, and actually can help bring your hormones into a better range. So.
Thanks. Soy boys debunked.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your take on like marijuana or psychedelics and things?
I don't know a ton about it. It's funny how you ask me all these questions about chiropractic. Like, I'm not an expert on everything. You know?
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
You don't need to be.
No, but I
Speak
think
from
that-
experience, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know much about the marijuana, but the psychedelics I think is really interesting. And you've had my buddy Ian on, right? So he
Yes.
already talked about the psychedelics. So I definitely, again, don't know much about it, but it seems like there could be some real potential benefits to psilocybin, right, and some of the other psychedelics in terms of helping, heal the brain, right, from traumatic brain injuries, people from helping with depression and stuff like that. So to me, it seems like there could be some benefits. It's unfortunately, right, in the 70s or whatever, they killed a lot of the scientific research on it, but that seems to be opening up now. And I think even just recently, right, wasn't it decriminalized in California like a couple of weeks ago?
It might have been.
I think it was.
You know what
mushrooms
what
are.
I'm seeing a lot of too, like speaking on your product, there's a lot of companies now creating a powder too with a bunch of different mushrooms inside of it. I don't know if they're
Lion's mane and
psychedelic,
all that
but
stuff, yeah.
something that has some sort of mixture that is that. But
Like ashwagandha and all
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, those things. Yeah.
I see those
I think there's
advertisements a
some
lot.
validity to some of that, and then there's some stronger research behind some of those mushrooms and not so much with others. But I think it's really interesting. But I mean, Ian's the best guy to talk to on psychedelics,
Yeah,
right?
He is.
He's the goat of
whole
psychedelics.
career focused towards
Yeah,
it.
we
got
were
invited to a retreat.
Yeah, we had him on the
Yeah, me too.
podcast. Ian's a good friend of mine, and he's like, he came on, and we were talking a lot about the UFC and everything that he's done there, kind of just like you. And he just is so passionate about the psychedelics. It's unreal.
Yeah, no,
like
for sure.
he knows everything about it, kind of the history behind it, and
Yeah,
everyone in that world, like they love him. It's unreal. Like he's killing it with that. Isn't he doing some like nonprofit stuff?
Yeah.
Yes.
I saw that.
That's what he was saying.
So he competed recently. I went down and watched him compete in jiu-jitsu. He hadn't fought
Against
before.
that
Was it Smitty guy?
Smitty.
Yeah. The guy in the black dude in the
Yeah.
We had had
Spider-Man
him,
outfit.
we had
right?
him on the week after
Oh,
that.
yeah,
I'm
he's
pretty
cool,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I follow him on Instagram. Yeah, but I think he was raising
beefing.
money for his nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
He
He
was,
was that week after he fought Smitty, he came on, and then that guy was putting a bunch of stuff about Ian.
They're going
on,
back and forth on social media. It was pretty
like
funny.
fighting about it. And then our podcast
After
released.
they competed?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
he
apparently
wanted to
there was
go
some-
round two. He's like, you were weak. I don't even need to train
That
for
Smitty
you
guy was
again.
talking.
said that?
Yeah, he was talking
but I
about
heard
Ian.
He
Yeah.
lost. Like he
Yeah,
lost.
he didn't get caught.
But it seemed pretty easy for Ian.
Yeah, it didn't look like he was trying that hard. And
Yeah, Ian's pretty experienced too. I was gonna ask, just from when you were in the UFC to where the UFC's gotten now, people self-marketing, kind of like what you have to do to be a popular UFC fighter, what your view was on it, and some of the UK fighters. Like I know Paddy Pimblett's coming up fighting Tony Ferguson. I wanted to see what you thought about
He's gonna
that.
smoke him.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like, when I was fighting UFC, like the Instagram was like barely a thing,
Yeah.
right? So I just thought like I don't have that many followers on Instagram. I mean, like 100,000 or so, or whatever now. But that was mainly from the film, right? And I don't have a good posting schedule or any like plans around my social. I just post a few things right here and there. But I think these days you've got to, in order to sell the fight,
Part of the business, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's a business, right? And you got to sell yourself, right? And so I think you got to build up the fans, and if you got a big fan base, you're more likely to get better fights. And
You think you could go too far?
Well, yeah, I think it can. I mean, I think McGregor probably took it a bit too far sometimes, you know.
Especially recently. Do you think that it's good for the sport and like it's getting more eyes, or is it hurting the sport as it's not as focused on talent?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not black and white where it's like it's all good and it's all bad. It's probably a bit of both. You know?
Yeah, it kind of evens out.
But I think it's great overall. I mean, the Ultimate Fighter really was the thing that got, like the first Ultimate Fighter was the thing that really put UFC on the map with the general population. It was on Spike TV originally, and like the UFC was about to go out of business before that happened.
Yeah, it kind of saved it.
But like, the Ultimate Fighter did that, and then got in the popular opinion, and then with social. Yeah, I think it's important. Like, if it was all boring and flat, then I don't think the UFC would be anywhere near as big as it is now.
How's your relationship with Dana? Do you still talk to him?
No, I don't talk to him anymore. It's been a long time, but he was, he was always nice with me.
Yeah.
I don't know him super well, but he gave me a ride somewhere in a car right after the Ultimate Fighter finished, and he was always cool with me. But
That's cool.
yeah, I don't really follow it that much anymore. I don't so I don't know about the politics or the yeah.
But as far like, do you think? I mean, I know you don't follow it as much as you used to, but do you think they're underpaid?
Yeah, I think generally, right. You've got a huge disparity. Obviously, you got to look at it though as like those people that are getting paid a lot are also bringing in a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's a lot to
They're
put.
contractors though, right? So it's
Yeah. I mean, you're fighting now. There's obviously like the lawsuit going on, right? Because they're saying if it's a monopoly and you couldn't afford anywhere else for any good money. But I think it would be good to like have healthcare for when you're training, right? If you're going to be fighting multiple times a year, and a lot of people have got like in the lower levels, they've also got jobs, right? And if you've got jobs, then your fighting's not going to be as good because you can't focus on training, right? Yeah. And so do you want to put on a really good show for everyone? I think it'd be better if once you're in an organization like the UFC, you can do it full time. Yeah. Now, maybe you're teaching at a gym a little bit, right? But like you shouldn't have to have a full-time job in my view, because you want to put on the best show for the fans. And if you can train full-time, it's going to be better fights, you know?
Are there any very popular fighters that are plant-based in the UFC that we would know?
I haven't followed it recently. There were a while back. Nate's not completely vegan, but he's pretty plant-based, right?
Who was that?
Nate Diaz.
Oh, Nate.
Yeah, he eats a little bit of fish, I think, and that stuff now. But
that's cool.
I know that when they're doing their fights, him and Nick would go completely vegan when they're doing their fights. But like I said, it's all or something, all or nothing, you know?
Do you think someone like Francis Ngannou would benefit from going plant-based?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Like, I think people are doing really well despite, their diets. I think that there's particularly longevity in a career. So if you look at people like Serena Williams and Tom Brady doing plant-based, right? Like Messi doing plant-based when he's in season, right? I think they realize that they're going to get more longevity out of their career, which ultimately means more money, right? Less injuries, better recovery. So I do think that nutrition has a huge impact. And again, like, it's hard to argue that like 100% plant-based is better than 95% plant-based based on the research. But if you were to like pit 95% plant-based against 50% plant-based or something, I think that you'd be able to prove a pretty good case point for that. And I do think you have better recovery. I think endurance can be better.
Is Ronaldo on it?
I don't think he is.
I don't know.
I wonder
he's probably
better.
eating steaks and like.
No, but like for example, people say,
Messi
there's
better.
loads of examples. Like most examples of people that are doing really well are eating meat. But like when we were training, there was 2 of the top 10. There's only like 1 or 2% of the population that were completely vegan, right? But when we were filming the Game Changers, 2 of the top 10 heavyweight boxers were completely vegan. That's 20% of the top heavyweight boxers. So you can be big and strong. I'm not that big, right? But these guys there's some pretty big
Still
dudes
have
like
the knockout
powerlifters and yeah. My ex-wife, right? She's 48 years old, 130 pounds. Okay, she would beat right now the California squat and deadlift record. She squat over the deadlift record's 325 pounds. Keep in mind for her age group, right? And
for 130 pounds, that's
right. Like can you guys
especially
easily
pushing
deadlift
50
325?
deadlift 325.
A lot of guys in the gyms can't. That's 3 plates on each side.
Never tried it, but I bet I would break my back.
But dude, like 100,
That's
she's
nuts.
130 pounds, and she's completely
48?
plant-based. Yeah, 48. So she would beat right now. I said, like, why don't you just go beat the record just to show you, like, she would beat the California deadlift and bench press and squat record right now.
Tell the power
Holy
lifters to
crap.
How
watch
much
out.
could she squat? 3.
Yeah, she never tried a 1 rep max, but she reps like well over 200 for 8 reps, below parallel.
Does she do like?
And for like 130 pounds.
But that's
wild.
insane. Kobe can't even do a
And she's
plate.
she's not fat, right? Like a lot of some powerlifters have got quite a lot of fat.
They're like
on them.
wide.
She hasn't
set.
got fat on her either.
Wow,
So,
that's
and
crazy.
she doesn't wear a belt. She doesn't wear knee wraps. Like nothing.
Is she in like bodybuilding competition or
Doesn't do it,
anything
no,
like
she doesn't
that?
do it.
Just
No, she just does
and
it
she's
for
fully
fun.
plant based as well.
Yeah, has been.
Is she natty?
Yeah. Yeah, she's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had to ask because that's just crazy.
Yeah,
that
she's
is
very-
crazy.
yeah.
Back like skipping over like you flying to LA and starting to train in Orange County.
Yeah.
Were you like always a fighter as a kid? Did you always have
I
that
would get
fighting
into
in you?
fights.
Like how
I was
did
pretty
you
like, yeah, I'd wind people up and get into some fights and stuff. But then, so the fighting was in my family. So my grandfather faked his birth certificate when he was 14, 15 so he could fight in World War II.
Oh no way.
So he could get in before he was legally eligible. So he faked his birth
He
certificate.
wanted to go in there.
Yeah. And he was like the only guy that survived in his platoon. There's actually a book about his platoon.
Wow.
It was like under machine gun fire and they all got killed. He dove into a river and swam out. But when he got out, he still like, he was fighting in pubs and stuff. And then my uncle was like super high level karate guy. In fact, he fought in Crystal Palace in Kyokushinkai karate, which is a very hard style of karate. And he got a knockout, spinning hook kick to the temple, knocked the guy out in like 3.8 seconds or something in the championship. And then my dad did kung fu. And so it was
in your
sort of in the blood a little
always
bit.
been in.
Yeah. Either the blood or like the way that I was raised. Yeah. So I started karate when I was 8 years old, Kyokushinkai. And then, I just started doing a whole bunch of different.
when was the moment like, okay, I got this, I can take this far, or I can actually take this seriously?
Because that's a crazy jump.
Yeah,
to be like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
put
it's
my body
kinda
on the line.
I mean, I was in university, I was doing more martial arts than I was for my degree. But again, I wasn't really, it wasn't because of competition. I was following Bruce Lee's sort of mindset. He would say, research your own experience, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. So it was his search for truth in combat. And there's a lot of bullshit in martial arts, just like there is in nutrition. So ultimately, I ended up like on the search for truth in nutrition, right? But there's a lot of bullshit in martial arts, and so I just
What do
wanted
you
to,
mean by bullshit though?
there's
Like,
a lot of like the traditional, styles, or like Wing Chun Kung Fu. People will say, "Well, you can never take me down because I control the center line," right? They're like, "Oh, if you shoot in, I'll just do this." Like, there's a lot of stuff that just
Like Tai Chi.
yeah. I mean, yeah. So there might be some benefits to that stuff, but it's not really useful in combat.
Yeah.
Every martial art's got probably some percentage of usefulness, right? It might be 5% useful, 10% useful. But with the UFC, they've sort of borne out what styles, like boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai,
Kind of the
those are
basis
actually
of
working.
actual
and
fighting.
they work because they've been tested, even though they've got a set of rules, they've been tested within their rules, full contact. So in judo, you're trying to really take me down.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to really take you down. In wrestling, I'm trying to take you down and pin you, right?
The object
In
is the
boxing, I'm
same.
trying to hit you. So it's going to develop efficiently, right? So anytime you got to competition where you can really go against each other, you're going to develop inherent efficiency. Whereas a lot of the, I'm not saying that all karate and all taekwondo and all like kung fu is useless, but a lot of those styles and the way they're trained, they're not full contact.
And they're not focusing on certain areas of fighting.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
sure.
a lot of like imaginary stuff that I think if you did this, I think this would work.
Situational type
Yeah,
fighting.
and then like the students tend to like cave in to like how it's supposed to work, and then it looks good, and
yeah, it's not
a
like
lot of it doesn't work.
actual. I watch a lot of YouTube videos of like MMA guys versus like Kimbo masters. Those like Kimbo guys get their asses kicked. It's like not even funny sometimes.
or street boxer versus MMA.
Yeah.
What do you think someone should train? Like, what do you think the best martial art to train
It's
is?
tough, right? Yeah, because there's not a single martial art. I mean, I think jiu-jitsu is really important because in a street fight, if you're not attached to somebody, like they haven't grabbed you and you haven't grabbed them, you can run. But the difference is once you get grabbed, you don't always have that option to escape, especially if it ends up on the floor. So I think jiu-jitsu is really key because it gives you that fighting ability once someone's got a hold of you or you've got a hold of them. You know what I mean?
Put them in a pretzel.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also like jiu-jitsu, Joe Rogan talks about this too, but right, if you swing on me, there's a chance, right, that you might just swing a lucky shot and catch me.
Let's go.
But if it goes to the ground, there's no way you're going to like accidentally choke or armbar a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean?
Can't get a lucky shot.
So I think
on the
jiu-jitsu
ground.
is really important, but then you should also have some good stand-up. And then the other thing is people focus on fighting as self-defense, right? But But there's all sorts of other stuff that goes into self-defense. So one is like, obviously, don't go stupid times with stupid people. Don't go stupid places at stupid times with stupid people. You know what I mean? You break those 3 rules, like probably going to end up in trouble. And then like, so evading situations, being sensible, avoiding them, de-escalating, verbalization, right? Awareness.
Being confident, telling people you're going to bite their
Bite their
ear
ears
off.
off. Yeah. But you know what I mean? It's like, there's a lot more to self-defense than just fighting ability. So fighting ability is important, but if you can avoid it or evade, de-escalate, talk people down, right? Those are also skills, like looking up visual cues, right? And then 2-on-1 principles and dealing with weapons. There's a whole thing of which, like the MMA stuff and those skills are like punching, grappling, right? Takedowns. That's a subsection of self-defense in general.
Was there a number like cash-wise that you would take to hop back in the cage?
No. I mean, well,
Never?
I mean, if it was crazy.
There's a price for everything.
Like
though, right?
what would the price be for you?
It's interesting. Maybe like $5 million.
$5 million?
Yeah.
You wouldn't take $1 million? That's a lot.
I mean, yeah. Even the money thing. Like, I don't even. I want to compete in jiu-jitsu again. It's just I'm busy, right? We're doing Game Changers 2 with the film, with my nonprofit. We just launched this brand fighter. And so if I could get consistent training in, and also my neck keeps playing up, I'd like to compete in jiu-jitsu. Would it even be worth it, right? Like for the potential of getting injured. I don't know.
When you think about like longevity and stuff, I was going back to self-defense. Is there like a common situation or something that happens like a lot that brings people to you for self-defense that you've seen, like with multiple people, like getting robbed or mugged or like type of thing where like a lot of people who reach out to you for self-defense have gone through?
Yeah. I mean, I barely teach anymore because I don't have the time. Like occasionally I'll do some stuff, but yeah, some people have been attacked in the past, or like women, people have tried to rape them.
Assaulted.
Yeah. So I like being able to like train people and give them some skills,
It's a cool skill to give people.
But then a lot of people are just being sort of like preparing just in case something does happen, right? Like it's likely at some point you're going to get attacked in your life, and it'd be
Just
nice
being
to have some
preemptive
skills.
type of thing.
Yeah.
So what do you do when someone's pointing a gun at you? I saw
can
the
show you.
video.
Yeah. So obviously if there's a huge distance,
You're kind of fucked.
You can't do anything.
You can't do anything at that point, right? I mean, if there's quite a bit of distance, then you can run and you could zigzag potentially because it's easy to pick someone off if they're running straight. But if you're close, then, people say, gun disarms, knife disarms are BS. But if you watch, there's a pretty cool channel on YouTube that I watch nearly every day called Active Self-Protection. And it's a bunch of, security camera footage. There's some police, body cam footage, but a lot of security cam footage. People pull off knife disarms and gun disarms all the time that are untrained.
Really?
So if you get some real training in, and the reason that you can sometimes beat, someone with a gun if they're close is that action beats reaction. And that's explained by something called the OODA loop, which is observe, orient, decide, and act. So if you've got a gun on me and I'm observing, deciding what I do, and then this is all happening subconsciously very quickly, and then I act, you're 3 steps behind me on the OODA loop. As I'm acting and trying to take the weapon-bearing limb offline, you're observing, and then you have to decide, then you have to act. You see what I'm saying? So you're like 3 steps behind me. So that explains why action beats reaction. If you were holding a gun to my body or my head and he says go, the trigger pull is, we've got the signal at the same time to go. The trigger pull is always going to be more efficient than any movement that I can do. But if I initiate something as a counterattack,
You want to demonstrate it?
Sure, we can. Yeah,
You want to pop the film up? We can do that.
I can pop the clip up.
We can
Pop
put
the clip up. We'll do it.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do though? Like, because a knife's probably more likely, right? Like, what do you?
It depends, but yeah.
And there's also, I was gonna say, there's also a chance the person who's gonna pull the trigger might not even pull the trigger. So,
Yeah, I mean, obviously compliance is like, well, again, avoid situations in the first place, right? If something looks dodgy, there's something called Jeff Cooper's Color Code of Mental Awareness, which is worth looking up online to understand that. Most people encode white, completely oblivious. You should really encode yellow most of the time. So you're aware, right? So you're about to go into a convenience store and it's 80 degrees and someone walks in with a trench coat. Maybe don't go in the convenience store, right? But like, you know what I mean? Like be more aware, right, of situations, trying to avoid them. If you get into that situation, well, yeah, a lot of times it is better to comply, for sure. And typically you want to be 100% compliant or 100% combative and not in between. You don't want to be like trying to half fight someone off with a gun and like half pushing it off. You either go in, like, you go in aggressive, or you comply. And doesn't mean you can't switch from one to the other.
Yeah.
Like, but you don't half fight.
Because then they're going to
Fight or
for
flight.
sure do
Yeah.
something.
There are situations I've seen where someone will be combative, like try and grab the gun, and then the guy will pull the gun away, and then
you just kind of have to give up.
Like, okay, here's the stuff. But yeah, a lot of times it's better to be compliant. But it's nice to have, I had a student that watched my class for 5 minutes. He did jiu-jitsu. He got changed. Watched I was teaching gun disarms, gun defense. He watched my class for 5 minutes. 2 weeks later in Santa Ana, someone pulled a gun at him at the party.
No.
And he did the defense that I taught in class. Got it slightly wrong, but
shot in the foot.
the guy pulled the trigger. Gun went off. It was tucked under my student's arm. Hit my student's brother. Just skimmed his arm like that. Fell on the gun, and the fight got broken up. But he only watched my class for 5 minutes.
That's
Do
crazy.
you think that's manifestation though? That's crazy.
I don't know, maybe. But I think that like the stuff I teach for self-defense is pretty caveman stuff. You want like gross motor skill, so it's easy to recall and remember. And when I teach defense against striking, I don't teach defense against techniques. I didn't teach defense against angle of attack. So if something's coming around this side of my face, with a strike, you can only get attacked circular or linear. So you just have a defense against linear strikes and against circular strikes. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you're doing like a hook or a spinning back fist or a kick to my head or tiger claw. You know what I mean? It doesn't
be able
matter
to
if it's coming
defend
this
it the
side of my
same way.
face. I cover like that. That's it. So you don't make it overcomplicated. So that's why I think some of the stuff I teach is
break it
easier
down a
to
little
pull
bit.
off in a real situation because you're just keeping the fundamentals.
More adapted to other situations too.
Yeah, you
not
don't want to
just
have to think,
fighting.
oh, he's doing tiger claw.
Yeah.
I'll do this defense. If he's doing knife slash like this versus a short hook versus like the psycho
Yeah.
one, you don't want different defenses against all that. You want
You don't
want
need to learn 20
So you
techniques or
don't have
anything.
to think like, tiger claw's coming at me. Let me go like this.
We're gonna have to do. You guys should come to my house. We'll do a basement talk self-defense session.
That would be so
down.
cool. That would be
I got all
awesome.
the
I'm
mats
down.
geared up. And I got the padded
Yeah,
wall.
let's
and
do
all
it.
that,
We'll
yeah.
do it.
Me and Zach wrestle.
Yeah, me and Kyler will
for
go
sure.
at it.
We'll
No,
do that
let's do
too.
it. We'll
Can we
do
do
a part
judo?
two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just throw each other.
All that stuff. So,
So-
you guys can welcome to come down.
Yeah.
That would be super
play
Is
around
there
it.
is there anything our subscribers that you want to say to them or anything you look forward to doing? I know you said
One
game
thing
changers
too,
too.
like, is there anything? Because man, we did definitely some research looking into your whole situation, everything you're doing. But is there something that a lot of people may not even know online about
Yeah, maybe
you?
something we missed on.
Like, or not even.
No, I mean, the
just
two
something.
big things that I'm working on right now, we're doing Game Changers 2, right, with
Yeah.
LeBron James. And I'm looking more at sustainability and like what we're doing, what you're eating affects the planet. So the first one was more about personal health and performance, right? And now we're looking more about like what we're eating. We touched on the planet too, and sustainability touched on it for a few minutes in the first film, but we're really, like, I don't think people realize how screwed we are in terms of, what we're doing to the planet, in terms of, the warming, the air pollution, the water pollution, all of that stuff. And the number one thing that anyone can do is shift towards more plant-based eating. That people don't realize, like if you think about water use, people don't realize that most of their water use is in the food they eat, not the water. You could leave the shower on all day, every day, and it wouldn't compare to the meat that you're eating, right? Because there's so much, like 2,400 liters of water to make one hamburger, right? People don't realize that they're external, the stuff that's coming in, and they're having a much bigger impact. Like it's not the car that you're driving that's creating the most damage to the environment. Like the food that you eat is having a much bigger impact. It's like methane, for example, is a much stronger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, right? And it's a shorter lifespan, but that's actually helpful if we want to stop the warming of the globe. Then we need to cut down on eating meat. So we're covering a lot of that stuff in Game Changers 2. And then we just launched this brand. I'm really excited about this. So
Yeah, why don't you open it up, Co?
yeah, the CEO of AB InBev, which is a strange story, but the CEO of AB InBev, which is the world's largest brewer, saw the Game Changers in 2019, and as a result, built a subsidiary. Yeah, so this is
Show us some of the stuff you got.
Yeah, and you guys should got to try it. But basically,
I'm gonna have it with my coffee in the morning.
yeah. So it mixes into things that other protein won't mix into. So like there's a creperie, like making crepes in LA with the Game Changers protein. It's got 45 grams of protein. You couldn't do that with any other protein because it'd be too chalky or gritty, right?
Yeah.
And it's up to 5 times more soluble than pea protein. But basically, AB InBev, the world's largest brewer, when you make beer, you pull out the starch, and you're left with the protein and fiber that's like bound together.
Yeah.
And so because they saw the Game Changers, they built a subsidiary called Evergrain, which now separates the protein and fiber, and it's created not only the world's most soluble plant protein, So it just dissolves into stuff that you couldn't put in anything else. But also the world's most sustainable. So it's American-grown protein. Most of the protein powder you've probably tried is from China. Right? Sold by American companies, but it's from China, right? This barley protein, the upcycled barley protein, is grown here in America.
American made, baby.
Let's go.
America.
America.
America, yeah. So it's just it's better taste and texture than anything on the market. We beat the top 2 leading plant-based brands 3-1 in consumer testing at the National Food Lab, and so people should. You know what we should do? We should give your listeners a discount code. So can we put that in?
That would be awesome.
Yeah. That would be
We should
Put up
basement talk. Wait, no, we
basement
could do
talk.
smaller.
Yeah.
BT.
Yeah.
How about BT15 for like 15%
BT
off?
15.
BT15.
Guys,
There's
go
the
to
code.
FIDA.com. BT15. Let's
It's a
go.
discount code. Get your gains up.
Get your gains up.
Tw-
Stop
20
eating meat.
20% more glutamine than whey, which has been shown to help with muscle recovery more than any other plant protein. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
And it increases your erection, guys.
Well, possibly. I'm not going to make that claim. But you guys can try it out.
Yeah.
Not with each
we'll
other,
be the
but-
test subjects.
But thank
awesome.
you so much for coming
this
on.
is
We really
awesome.
appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate
We
it.
can't wait for part 2.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do something. We'll come up with something fun. But Kyler, Zach, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you, James.
But yeah, thank you so
James,
much.
man.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys liked this episode. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys so much. Peace.
Jay with a baby, I am what he made me. No, you cannot shame me, so it's for the birds. Buy full price, you ain't know what it's worth. He not letting go like it's grandmama purse.